Hello.
Hi.
So I'm David. This is Toby. So today we have a short presentation on how to prepare for majors. So I'll introduce this and then Toby will start off with the first point. Um, but the reason why we're sort of sitting here awkwardly is because the CAP of ABP has asked us for a short video for your use, especially as on-site majors are coming back into the fore. People might not be so prepared. So I am one of the DCAs, or is it co-DCA? I don't know the term for ABP. So you'll probably be seeing me if you're going to ABP, and Toby is just some random guy I picked off the street. No, he was also. We both won the world championship, so that's why we're here. Toby, you may be seeing him as IA, unless I don't know his plane crashes or something.
My passport gets denied.
You already have a visa, and it still gets denied. In any case, so that's enough of a boring introduction. They'll probably put something in the description anyway. We can just get started on how to prep for majors. So I can get started now. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is how to prepare for majors by matter loading. So you
All
can
right.
go.
So preparing for majors is really a long, long game. The team that does the best at the major isn't necessarily the team that does the best at all the prep tournaments, or even necessarily the best team by debate skill, however you want to quantify that. And one of the biggest steps to preparing for a major is obviously knowing your stuff. If you're caught off guard by a topic that gets said at a round, that is basically a free win that you didn't pick up. On the other hand, if you have the matter and you come in prepared and you have all of the knowledge, that is such a massive advantage that other teams just don't have. That is so easy to acquire and can really affect your performance. What should you read about and matter load? Number one, the major political issues in the country you are going to. So obviously, AdCores like to set thematic motions. Indeed, they probably will. And they tend to set motions about the place that everyone is going to, that try to draw on it for inspiration. At the bare minimum, you should try to know one, what the major political parties are or major important political leaders in that state. Two, important international connections that that state has, relationships with its neighbors, whatever controversies might be going on. And three, generally a sense for who the opposition is in that state. So in motions where you have to come up with a counterfactual on the spot, for the mainstream politics that's going on, it's good to have an idea of what the possible slew of alternatives is. Uh, yeah.
So cannot confirm nor deny. But this is generally good advice for any major you'll go to. If you're going to a major, say in the Philippines or in Thailand, you should have a good idea of the sort of scene and outlay of the major crises, major issues at the time. The second thing you should matter load on at minimum is themes with recent strong appeal. So the reason for this is because tournaments will sort of go through trends. Like there was this one spate of tournaments in like 2016, 2017, where all people set were like Black Mirror motions for the final, where they'd set like these weird scenarios that were just copied from an episode of Black Mirror. So it would be really uninventive. In general, sort of Edge course set was this, usually acceptable for the time, or at least in vogue. So nowadays, maybe it's like the new motion words that AdCore might like to play with. I'm speaking in my capacity as a competitor here. Emotions, how you say, will not reflect one way or the other. But in general, it's good to look at themes with strong appeal and to practice them because recency plays a large role, especially for motions about recent political events, like, say, in a particular area of the world, or motions about, like, let's say, a recent financial crisis. This will govern the types of examples you'll run, the type of themes of debates that you might encounter, even if it might not be exactly specified to that thing.
The final one is gaps in your own skill set. So if you as a debater know that you probably lack matter on finance, on AI, on pop culture, or whatever themes you know you struggle with, obviously prioritize that, growing your example base, your knowledge base for that particular field. You might also want to check how your skill set aligns with the skill set of the CA team as far as you are familiar with them. So if you know that a particular CA tends to specialize in artificial intelligence motions, in climate finance motions, or they have their own niche of knowledge, then definitely try to read up there. It's not, I know debaters who think it's a little dirty or a little cheap to try to read up on what you think the CAs are reading up on. But it's all fair game when you're preparing for a major. It's natural for CAs to want to set topics that they know very well and have a deep base of arguments for. So you might want to get invested into what they're doing, maybe from their country of origin, their culture of origin, or their field of work, just so you can have an idea of what might come out.
Yeah, a final note here is to not fall in love with your prep. So this is also why CA teams for majors tend to be quite large and diverse, because it helps with setting a diverse set of motions. So just know what you're bad at so that you don't take an instant fourth, and try and negotiate it at least to a second. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is how to acclimatize yourself to major debating. So other than knowing things, the next step is to actually say the things and to say it well. Part of this is the sort of skill set needed to debate and sort of convince the judge of a different circuit, or work with a new type of rebuttal or a new way of arguing a principle from another circuit that you're not so aware of. So majors are unique in that they're quite distinct from normal intervarsities or even nationals, which is that they are quite large. They draw from a very large pool of people, and so diversity is sort of the theme of the day. So how might you acclimatize yourself to major debating? The first major point is to practice several rounds in a single day to get used to debating while tired. So the thing about major debating is that you usually do more than 2 rounds a day. Sometimes you do three, like in Worlds. And in general, they do this because, of course, majors are large. They they tend to attract quite a lot of people, and so what ends up happening is that the schedule is normally on crunch. And in addition to this, majors are tiring. Like, you have to talk to a lot of people. You'll have to fly in usually, and it's very stressful. And it gets a lot on your nerves. So one way that we got really used to debating a lot. This was more for the lead up to Belgrade Worlds, where we just like fried our brains by doing tournaments at awful time zones and just going and going and going and going. We even did this a little bit for Madrid, where we did Vienna, right? We did Vienna pre online pre Worlds, and like that went okay. But what we really got used to was training for the late hours, so that when we went to Madrid, we wouldn't be affected by jet lag if ever, or you wouldn't be affected by sickness if ever. You could still deliver like an 80 level speech, a 79 level speech, even if your stomach is killing you. So practice several rounds in a single day, because you won't always be debating at your best. Anyone can win a round when they're prepared and sort of mentally ready for the motion. But when you're tired, or when things don't work out right, or when you have like suddenly half of prep is gone because your partner had to go to the bathroom, which I do all the time in prep, and so I leave Toby alone. Instead of just writing jokes on your paper, we can come back and like get the case right on track. Although we still write jokes on the paper.
Okay, the second one is to spar and debate in a variety of circuits. This is something that I know for a fact has gotten more popular with the online era. Of course, when you come to a major, especially if it's your first time at an international regional major like ABP, you're going to encounter a lot of debaters who have very different speaking styles, very different judge values, or just perceive certain arguments in ways that you might not be used to. So it's especially useful to spar and debate people from those circuits. In addition, I'd add that it's good practice to know how to adjust your style, or how to adjust your structure, organization, clarity, whatever, for people from different backgrounds to know what is most effective. Um, I'd also note that it's good to prepare for, well, I guess there's no better way to say it, but prepare for the different kinds of tilt that you will anticipate at a tournament. I mean, we have to be honest, right? Part of debating is being frustrated at certain kinds of opponents who use different kinds of ways of debating, which isn't to say that like people use dirty tricks or they use illegitimate things. They're just all part of the game. And if you're preparing for a major, you have to get used to that. It's like basketball. You have to get used to different styles, different strategies, even if you personally don't agree with them or you personally dislike them. They come up, so you should be prepared for them.
Yeah, so getting used to all these different things, and not just that, learning from it is so important, especially if you want to do well, because you don't know what judge you'll roll, and you also don't know if you might learn something from them. So maybe your way of debating is not optimal. In fact, structurally, most people will not have the perfect style of debating. So it's always good to diversify and to learn more about the world and other people and their style of debating. The final tip we have is to focus and practice taking physical notes and to speak while standing. Um, in general, we're talking mainly about online majors and our on-site majors, and our presumption is that people will be coming mostly from online tournaments or online prep tournaments. Um, I know a lot of circuits have moved back to mostly on site, but for some, and I think actually the majority of people, most of their debating experience recently has been online debating. And with that comes a loss of a lot of very crucial skills like public speaking, being able to capture the room. So perceptually, this matters a lot to the judge. And this also matters a lot to how your speech is received. If you're used to speaking like how you normally are in front of a screen and you don't project normally in a room, the judge just won't be able to hear you properly. And that'll just mean that you don't convey everything you wanted in that speech. Or, for example, you don't know how to pause properly. You're speaking at the right pace, but instead of your judge taking notes on like a laptop, this one is taking notes on pen and paper, and then you break their hand because you speak too fast. Like that's just not going to work in on-site debating. So you want to prepare for debating how you would as if you were at the major, which means you want to practice debating at suboptimal conditions. You want to practice debating against people from all sorts of circuits, all sorts of debating trends, themes, and styles. And finally, you want to prepare yourself for delivery in the way that there was in the way that there's debating in physical life. So, for example, before Worlds, we had never done an on-site tournament together, Toby and I. So we'd always been online, and we'd had fought each other before in on-site tournaments, but that was a long time ago. So in fact, since 2020, Madrid Worlds was our first on-site tournament. If I'm remembering right, unless I like sleepwalk to a tournament in person somehow during the pandemic. So you really have to get yourself used to it because it's a whole different way of thinking. You might like find yourself after doing this totally destroyed in a round because you just didn't write enough arguments or because you're not used to speaking in a different way, but you kind of have to because most tournaments will not allow for laptops unless you have a special exception. A lot of tournaments will probably not allow you to sit down, although they will. I think they're more permissive with that. But it's just like there are conventions and norms that if you plan on sitting down, then you can continue to sit down. But normally, if you plan on debating differently at majors, which you probably will, then you should prepare for that.
The last thing I'll add to this is it's very important to practice your partner dynamics. A lot of being in a major is the non-debate related stuff. So after round, knowing how to get your partner to detail, knowing when your partner is hungry, knowing when your partner is tired, knowing when it's time to go back to the hotel, or knowing when it's time to do something else and think about something non-debate for a while. It's a lot of relationship and team management, and that kind of stuff isn't really what teams put a lot of effort into. Teams kind of think that chemistry should click naturally, and if you have a bad partner, you'll just never learn to work with them. But chemistry is built up, and that's part of preparing for a major. You have to know what makes you click as a partnership, what brings you guys together, and how you can best unite to kind of meet your objective for whatever your goal is at the major.
Yeah, you don't have to love your partner, but like you should at least tolerate them. You'll be spending a long time with them. In fact, only with them. So with I think I spent like 90% of my hours at Madrid with Toby. And I think in ABP, like 80% because there was a vacation day. And then Toby had other things to do that day. And so I went ahead with the rest of the group. So yeah, you'll really spend a lot of time with them. So get used to them. Try and make things easy. You don't have to love them. You don't even have to like them, but you have to have a good working relationship with them. Fortunately enough, Toby and I coincidentally are friends. I
Fair
think.
enough.
I think maybe. And so that's why he is in my house because I've kept him here since all that time. Okay.
All right. The last one is to set goals and enjoy the experience. A lot of people come into majors with this very all or nothing attitude where it's like, if I don't break now, I'm a failure. If I don't make a championship now, I'm a failure. If I don't reach a quarter or make a top 10 speaker award right now, I'm a failure. I think something that always helps for majors is you got to think in the long term, where you want to see every major, even though it is a once in a lifetime experience, as a stepping stone to something after it. This doesn't have to be debate related, right? But you want to maximize how much you can take away from it, how much you can learn, skills you can apply. So the first big tip here is set reasonable and meaningful goals for yourself and your partner. I'm not telling you to set low expectations for yourself. It's always good to dream big, but you shouldn't hold yourself to an unreasonable standard of success. And you definitely shouldn't hold your partner to that standard if you know for a fact that it's not comfortable for them. So don't pressure your partner after every round being like, shit, bro, we got to win the championship. We got to win the championship. Can't believe we took a second in that round. It's so bad. I can't believe I didn't get a 90 in that round. It's so bad because it creates unnecessary strain on the relationship, and you can't change the outcome of rounds you've already done. So just focus on looking forward and adjusting your expectations as you go along.
Yeah, Toby's exactly right. Setting reasonable goals for yourself is very important. While it's always good to dream big, and a lot of problems people have is that they don't dream big enough, the obverse is that if it doesn't go exactly the way you wanted, you'll just explode off the face of the earth. So you have to learn how to manage your own expectations. Um, Everybody wants the Cinderella story, but the important thing is that when your goals break or when you have to realign, you can still like learn from that, and you're not too tilted to ask for comments or to ask for feedback. If you're obsessing over the fact that you didn't give the perfect speech that you wanted, you'll lose the opportunity to write down what you learned from that speech or to ask for comments from the judge or even just to sort of enjoy the moment and listen to the arguments that are being given by the other team. The next um, tip we have is to try and get administrative stuff out of the way early. It's really hard to debate well if you're worrying about your flights or if you're worrying about your reg. It's hard to do good prep if you're also registering for your visas at the time. The issue with this is that typically real world circumstances don't cooperate. They're not as nice to deal with because for example getting to Madrid was really hard because visa issues were really tough. Flights were quite bad, so some people would have to, what's the English word for this, abono, some people have to shell out for others first for flights because some you just don't have the cash in hand to pay for such expensive flights or the reg. So try and get this out of the way early. I know it's like a mental blocker, it's really hard to think about, but you have to do the budgeting, you have to do the reg, you have to do the visas to assess if it's even feasible for you to start prep. And in addition, so that you can start prep wholeheartedly without worrying about the tournament. And finally, when you do land there, it's so much harder if you're worrying about your outfit, if you're worrying about like if you're gonna get deported midway through the tournament, or if you're looking for accommodations. So try and have a good idea of the basic stuff. What airport are you landing at? How are you getting down from the airport? Did you bring important things in the hotel like clothes, like toiletries and stuff? This is all necessary like life stuff so that when you go to the tournament, you're only thinking about debating. Have enough money so that you can pay for food afterwards or ensure that there's nothing going to be wrong with having to pay for reg or go to council to justify your institution's sort of existence and at the same time debate the day after. So it's much easier if you get this out of the way early. So try and have a checklist for yourself and tick off the checklist when you're done. So visas, flights, accoms, food, like eligibility at the tournament, how are you getting home, etc. The final thing we have is
Make friends, respectfully. So debaters come from very different cultures, especially if you're at a big tournament like AVP. So try to be sensitive to their way of socialization. Some debaters are more introverted, more sheltered. Some come from cultures where it's not nice to be overbearing or to like follow them around. Obviously, like anything that is harassment will not be tolerated, even if you don't think it's harassment, even if the other person just feels uncomfortable by you doing it, you should stop. But that doesn't mean you should be rude. Don't be nice. Don't be mean. Try to be nice to everyone as much as you can. Even those casual conversations, thank yous after the round, like short chats about arguments you could have run. Those things build relationships over time. So cherish the people you meet. They're all hopefully very nice people, and they will stick with you for a long time if you can make the relationship worthwhile.
yeah, you can make many friends. Majors are one of the few rare circumstances in life where you're there just to do one thing and everybody has a common purpose or shared goal that you can all enjoy in, which means that you have so much opportunity to learn about people from different countries. And it's really necessary for that to be like one in the pragmatic way for you to do well at the tournament. If you're feeling alone and alienated the whole time, it's going to suck at the tournament and you're going to get tilted, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to feel like it's worth it, especially if you do poorly. But in addition to it, even if you do well, it just won't be as worth it if you don't have friends that cheer you on when you're on that finals podium, when you're giving your best speech. If nobody's there to enjoy your presence, or if you feel like it's been a slog the whole way, it's not going to make any sense. So let's conclude all of this. So what's our tip? So this is a shorter video. There are many other videos out there that you can take a look at. The one that comes to mind for me is Suradip's UADC prep video, which is also really good. It gives a lot of in-depth details on how to what drills to do for stuff. But these are just some broad tips to ensure that when you prep for majors, you can do these following things. The first is you want to know stuff about the place that you're going to so that you're prepared adequately for debates that might give you an instant fourth, debates about the place that you're going to, and generally inform yourself about debate. In addition, you want to make sure that you're used to debating in this type of way, which means equipping yourself with the resilience, equipping yourself with a variety and diversity of debating skills, as well as just, in addition to all of this, being equipped with the public speaking tools to deliver an in-person major. And finally, you want to enjoy the experience. You want to make sure like it was meaningful for you and a good way for you to learn about debating and about others. Thanks for
Alright.
listening. Bye, everyone.